Hello everyone, how's everybody doing today? How are you guys? Today I will be critiquing this piece. So this will be a live recording, and those who are watching on YouTube, my guests haven't quite arrived yet. But this is today's critique piece, and I'm going to be talking about color temperature, wintry scenes, cool versus warm, all that good cozy stuff for class. Um, Hello, Kyle. And I hope to add one more piece to today's critique if I can fit it in, but if not, it'll just be this one. Okay. So to get your work critiqued, all you have to do is go to istebrak.com, click on the subreddit icon right here. That'll take you to the subreddit, and this is where I've selected today's piece. Sorry, today my voice is just a little bit weak. And yeah, this is where you can submit your work for critique. A lot of people are active on this critique wall in this community, in this subreddit. This is where I've been picking and selecting pieces to critique. I also have a subreddit, a Discord. The Discord community is also very, very, very active. If you're looking for some quick critiquing, if you want to critique someone, critiquing also is educational for you. So just critiquing someone, it makes your skill explode, just that alone. So both of these communities are available to you guys, growing artists. These are free resources. All of this is free. The only things that are not free, obviously, are my masterclass and my classes. So if you want a copy of my masterclass, you can get it through my store or Gumroad, sorry. You can just click on the Gumroad icon right here. And if you want to join us, I am just sending out the apprentice assignments this week. My apprentices have an assignment that I do every year, sort of. I'm really not sure. I think last year I did something else. But this year, the end of year December assignment is to select a very, very old piece of yours, an old piece of art that you created, and paint a new version of it, paint it again, and compare your skill from where you were before, where you are now. And I think it's a great exercise, self-discovery exercise, and goal reorientation exercise. It's a great way for you guys to get acquainted with what's left in the fundamental panel for you to learn, what's left for you to practice, what to add on to your curriculum, self-taught or not. So I think this assignment is a really great one if you want to become an apprentice. That's where you can join. Okay, so let's get started on this piece. A couple of things right off the bat. Okay, the first thing is the canvas is a square. All right, so a square canvas has a lot of problems to it because a square canvas is very, very picky. It's got one really good spot, which is right in the middle. And one square, this can be used for all kinds of uses. A tile, I call it a tile canvas because it's in the name. It's literally the best version of itself when it's in the form of a tile. There's like a pattern in the middle. It can be a graphic design, it can be ceramics, it can be anything. Usually when you have a square based object or an object that is perfectly square, even if it's oblong or not oblong, like spherical, even if it's some kind of square dimensions, like its dimensions are square but its silhouette is curved or some other kind of crazy shape. There's really the only best place for it is right in the middle. That's the place where things look best. Anything off of that, that's where things look a little bit abstract, a little bit intentional. Intentionally abstract meaning doesn't feel quite right because it's akin to having one eye instead of two eyes. So when you have a canvas that is wider, you have so many new places to put a point of interest. You could put it here, you could put it here, you could put it here, you could put it here. These are all the different areas you could put a point of interest. Not here, not here, not here, and not here. This is a lot more. Suddenly, bam, oh, it looks like an eye. Cool. Suddenly we've just exploded out of these small little dimensions. Yeah, in a square, you can push it, but really the best spot in a square is the drop dead center. But here, you can have all kinds of iterations of that sequence. You can have all kinds of ways to distribute the focal point. So why is that problematic in this scene? Well, it looks like the viewer is only looking with one eye. One eye is open and one eye is closed. It looks like we've lost the depth, the field of view. It looks like claustrophobic. It looks like it's closed off. So we want to open both eyes of the viewer and give them a full, wide angle view, the way we look at things in the real world. So let's say you're standing on a mountaintop and you're looking down at the world and you are seeing this beautiful landscape. Well, you're going to move your head from side to side. You're going to just pan your head. It's going to be like a panorama. So the natural human instinct when observing life is to pan horizontally. We don't pan vertically. We're not a brontosaurus, so our natural instinct isn't just, I'm kidding, I don't even know where that's coming from. So what I'm going to do is just widen the canvas, and it can be empty space. The thing is, it feels less claustrophobic. You don't even have to go out of your way to paint a whole extra bunch of stuff. You can just put in a very abstract, and it should be towards the edges of the canvas. Things should be just generally abstract. So I'm going to mimic some of the paintbrushes you have here. And I'm going to try to create that same style of environment. Maybe throw in an extra tree or two. Okay. So widening the canvas is going to make your work more professional because you're thinking about viewers' experience while you're painting. That's a sign of an artist that has elevated their art, what they're offering in their portfolio. Oh, I'm thinking about cameras now. I'm thinking about the wider stage of experience when it comes to my art. I want the viewer to have all this extra stuff to look at and feel like they're in an actual environment. Tap into some of the real life experience of being out in the forest. What is that like? And give them more to look at, more to pan their head for and find something else. If we can see the beginning and the end of your illustration so quickly with a square canvas, it really closes off the scene. It really feels very, very, very empty, and it feels like it's lacking something. So I'm going to add another little tree here. I'm gonna try to mimic what you did, and don't want it to feel too close. Okay. And just adding some of these brush strokes that you have here. Nice control over your detail. You have a great brush work. You have great control over your brushes. And you have a good understanding of abstraction when it comes to texture. I like the way you went about detailing the foliage. It actually looks very, very storybook. And it doesn't feel like it's lacking anything. I think the thing that was just lacking was the composition. But that's something that plagues a lot of artists. Composition is very neglected because to study composition is to study film. And film is very neglected as a subject matter. A lot of students, when they're done learning all the fundamentals and they're ready to build illustrations, they have this like empty spot in their brain. They're like, damn, what am I doing? Like, I don't even know how to build this scene. I'm just going to put a character in it. And that's their solution for everything. I'm just going to throw a character on it. I'm just going to put a character right in the middle of the canvas. I'm just going to make sure this character is hyper detailed. I'm going to, and it's just going to be one non-solution after another, because there's no literacy when it comes to film. And so you obviously are going to resort to the stuff that you are literate in, which is character design, to carry the concept, forgetting completely what's happening with the frame, with the canvas. And so that's the problem here, is that we are not film literate as much as we should be, considering that we are painting film scenes. So Adam Duff actually invited me to join in on one of his recent videos, and that was what I talked about on my little section. He said, okay, what are the 3 top learning tools or learning subjects that you guys recommend? And for me, it was on the very top of the list. And those are the 3 things, and they'll never be topped. One was form studies, one was master studies, and one was studying film and framing and composition and all of that stuff. That is really the neglected field of study here. So I'm just trying to create that same wintry scattering of snow along the edges. I don't have quite the same brush you're using, and my brush is a little bit too soft, but that's what I'm doing here. Just trying to mimic what you did. Okay, so I added something extra to the edges of the canvas. Just gonna throw in some more weird little brush strokes here just to interrupt everything one more time. Okay, and then some twigs. I'm just mimicking what you did here in this weird twig I added. Extended. Yes, I am. I'm going to tint the screen blue. The scene, sorry, yes, blue. But I'll explain how much to do it and why as well. So we have, oops, we have a bit more. We have a bit more snow scattering needed, so I'm just going to just get a scattery brush here. And just kind of just stipple it in. Okay, so we have some interesting things happening in this illustration. So the first thing, let me throw in something in the foreground. Maybe throw in another tree in the back there. So I want to keep him generally on the side. I don't want to center him, because you know, the point is that we're trying to respect the original idea of the artist. Okay. And then I'm just going to add that snow towards the bottom. And then delete here. Adding some snow climbing along the sides, and then adding this shadow on the side. And that should be enough for now. So we have this fire right in the middle, and what's happening is that when I look at your canvas, these are the only 2 colors that we are looking at. That's it. You have like this egg yolk, egg theme going on. Look at before, after. Let me put the egg right on it. So do you see this? That's all the colors that we're getting. That brown doesn't count because it's practically gray. It's practically gray. So this is not right. This is not what happens when we turn a fire on in a wintry scene. It's a little more overcast, even though it's not may not be nighttime. Even though it might be like midday, it's still going to have a blue tint to it if it's overcast, because it's one, it's better storytelling, and two, because of all of the cold and all of the white and all of the sky filtering through the gray clouds, you're more likely going to end up, if you were to just throw your ball in the color world with all of those conditions attached to it, the high probability you're going to end up with blue, a cooler value in a wintry scene. In a summery scene, the odds are anything. You can end up with really, really rich blues and sky blues and blues in the asphalt reflected and blue in the water. You could also end up with really rich reds, cherry reds, pure oranges, the purest of yellows, because there's not much atmosphere between you and the object in the summertime. But in the wintertime, there's so much atmosphere. We're not talking about atmospheric perspective either, or humidity. Humidity does its own thing in the summer. We're talking about reflected light. We're talking about what white does on any surface it falls on. We're talking about snow and other kinds of particle effects. And we're talking about that thick, thick layer of winter clouds. So it's more likely that you're going to experience that in your photo. If you're doing plein air painting, you're going to come into contact with blue more. So I don't want to completely darken the scene because, what if it's not nighttime? But I will use a color filter, a slight color filter, just a slight blue. What that will do is it will let the yellow speak a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to delete the yellow now and delete anything the yellow touches. So this blue tint, what it did, I'm going to just give some of that yellow to the tree. I'll actually use my blocker. Some to the rock, some to the other tree, anywhere where this yellow hits, or this gold or this orange or whatever you want to call it. Just a slight blue tint. Do you see that? It can still be read as day. It can still read as daytime. But the problem from before was that it was just white and yellow. And it's a little bit more than that. It's a little bit more depth than that in a winter scene. Now we can take this even further. We can darken it, and that'll make it look even more cozy, more wonderful. So I'm going to darken. So again, this is one option. This is where I can stop the critique, official critique right here. And then what I can do now is go on darken. You guys know this trick already. Ooh, look at that. Now, isn't that awesome? All right, and I'm just gonna boost the blue a little bit. So this is with the darken, allowing only the light that's obviously emanating from the fire to get yellow. And this is the blue filter, the blue color. So this was twofold, the blue and the darkness. The value drop down, the vertical movement, and the hue change here, okay, into blue, from yellow to blue. There's also a saturation change. Okay, so now we can make things a little bit more interesting. So before I do that, let's drop some values. Since I already have these here, let's do some shadows, long shadows. So now we're going to think about other areas here that are getting affected by this fire. And the scene is just going to get more and more interesting because you're casting long shadows. Maybe this is some kind of stump. Okay, and then I'm going to send another little shadow back there from this lump. Shadow from this, and they all emanate from one source, so it's like one point perspective from that point of emanation, which is this fire. Every little stone, every little surface, every little twig will cast a cast shadow. Small or big, don't shy from it. Cast it. And then over here, I'm just going to show where this cast shadow is. Okay, and then just zooming out and making sure that I'm building the right kind of halo. So the further we get from this fireplace, fire pit, bonfire, campfire, the more we're going to get that point of emanation. So now we have this extra depth issue, which is the hut that he made against the background. I don't think the background should have that much of a value close in it, like a value that is that bright and close to the little hut he made. So I'm going to create like a little pocket of occlusion here. No light is really reaching that point behind him. So I'm going to build the shape of his little hut a little bit more clearly. And then I'll turn those filtered layers back on, and what we will get is a really nice complete scene. The physics or the fundamentals of an environment illustration are so simple and so straightforward that once you learn all of those basic tools like atmospheric perspective, standard perspective, when you learn cast shadows of large objects, large scale objects, I mean colossal cast shadows like mountains or trees or valleys, the rules of the ambient occlusion in a valley, reflected light along the side of a mountain, color changes, how the color of the sky, which what we know it to be blue, but if you're doing like an alien environment, how that'll affect the color wash rules. Once you know those fundamentals of an environment, you really can't make any more mistakes. It's just once you know them, you know how to meander through them and explore through them. You don't feel so kind of confused about, what's keeping this illustration from feeling immersive, because the fundamental rules of physics when it comes to large scale environments are immersive rules. So physics is immersive. Physics induces that immersive feeling because physics reflects reality. And so it's not to say that you need to just sit here and study, physics formulas. It's just look around you. There's a lot of physics happening. Light travels in a straight line. That's the first rule, the first commandment. And then what happens when light travels in a straight line in a lot of light in a large volume against a mountain or a field of snow? What happens to all those objects? What happens when the light gets turned off? How does that affect everything? So this here is what happens when the light gets turned off. We cool things down and we darken things. And I'm just going to create a cast shadow that gets fuzzier the further it gets from the object casting it. So the cast shadow shouldn't be sharp all the way down. It should get fuzzier the further it gets. And if the object is far from the light source, then it will also be fuzzy in its cast shadow. And you see how before the hut wasn't quite separated from the world around. And I could just put that on darken so it doesn't take away from that environment you have around there. So the one thing that I want to do is I want to introduce some of this gold, this yellow, probably on a neutral layer over the snow, wherever the snow gets that value. So probably right here would be good, or maybe this color here. And it's a little dangerous to do it this way because I don't want to paint away your stuff. So maybe just in color. Nah, that's not going to work. Let me see what can pull this off. Just trying to figure out how to do it with minimal damage, but apparently I don't think that's possible. So let's just go ahead and paint it right in. And I'm letting some of that yellow slowly recede, so it's not fully as yellow as it would be here. On all of the spots that the light touches. And there's one big cast shadow you're missing, which is the dude's cast shadow. And then I'm just going to just mess around. Oops. So we'll turn these off. Oh, I see what happened. Fortunately, I'm painting away your stuff, which I do not like. I like your little brush strokes here and there. They're cute. Right, I'm just going to, just very, very abstractly, I guess, sneak that yellow into the snow. I don't want to damage what you've done too much. Okay, so I turn those layers back on. That yellow is just giving some warmth in all those different areas. So I'm going to cast his shadow just directly behind him. And I'm going to filter, blur, Gaussian blur that cast shadow. Just until it reaches a point where I'm okay with it, and then I'm going to delete away at him. And then I'm going to go, I mean, each shadow, it looks okay, so I don't feel like I need to do it, but you don't have to. I'm going to boost the blue in each shadow a little bit as well. I'm going to just bring that. Remember that the fire flickers, so it's going to have like 2 shadows at some point, 1 shadow, and then back to 2. So it's going to flicker quite a lot. And so you could literally put it like right here and it wouldn't look wrong because that's one of the ways the fire flickered. You could put it here and that could be another way the fire flickered. You don't have to keep it perfectly situated in the back in that single frame. But I think he really needed a shadow right behind him. And then I'm just going to, in a new layer, get that blue on color mode and just cool off with extra blue, just a blue boost, all the shadows. It's just going to boost it up a little bit. So remember, we can keep it where you had it. We don't have to pick a time of day that is like the best for storytelling. But if it was my painting, I'd pick the best time of day ever, which is just that twilight, that point where the sun is just going down. We still have some light, but all the fires can still be appreciated. Everything's glowing with a blue. It's my favorite time of day. In the winter time. It's the best time. All the lights start turning on. So I'm just going to flatten the scene and I'm going to continue kind of creating this reflected layer along the snow of the hut towards the front. It's a very particular color. It's like a very peachy, beigey, yellowy snow color here. And it's helping all of that light make sense. And then on the guy himself, he needs a little bit more contrast. He needs a little bit more encouragement. And so I'm just going to boost his contrast. So I'm going to use burn and dodge on him because he's getting the light directly. And I'm making sure not to let it bleed over. And then I'm just going to cast some shadows from the, oops. From the fire, meaning that everything you would do with top-down light, you're doing the opposite in bottom-up light. All right, and then, so I'm gonna go to darken and pick any nearby blue. It can be any of these blues. And I'm just using it to darken his face, deleting only where I know the light will reach. Just a very, very standard little shadow. Making sure, excuse me, making sure to preserve his general expression. Now it looks like one of those backgrounds for those YouTube playlists, but it's not AI, which is great. So just a little cast shadow there. And then I just suggest some other stuff. I mean, you could just enlarge the whole canvas to fit in the scene a little bit better. So you could just do something like that. Because he feels a little small, even in the tile canvas you had, he's just a little bit small. So we can get more out of this. Or you can just increase him specifically. Really? That's what's happening? Okay, and so we can increase his size a little bit. Without having to damage any of the surrounding environment. So we can keep most of the scale, most of it. So it's a little bigger than before, giving us something else to look at. And then I would suggest trees in the foreground, other objects in the foreground, just to make the forest feel a little more full. This could be done really, really easily. Let me zoom out so I don't have to do too much work. Maybe just one or two little trees here. Oops. Maybe those trees don't match. Maybe you have those twisty trees, so maybe I'll do a twisty tree. Maybe that's too twisty. Okay, and then just throw a branch or two on it, and just to fill the scene up a little bit. I zoom all the way out so I could get a better estimation for the size that I'm, damaging essentially the canvas with. So I have less damage when I work with a really, really far zoom out when I'm introducing any large objects. And the more random you are with trees, the easier they are to paint and adjust. Nature is crazy random, and so it's best to have be able to tap into that randomness, which was hard for me because I'm such a type A, I guess. I really, really like when things are symmetrical and clean, so it was really difficult for me to accept the rules of asymmetry in nature and in composition as well. But eventually you'll learn it. And I really recommend just way more foliage, just more trees, more of everything. Keep everything random. And then I'm just gonna put in a couple more of those snowy peaks. Maybe a bump or two in the foreground. And then another little bit of foliage here. Maybe this one has raised roots. And just keeping those twigs random and odd. one thing you can't do is be mechanical in nature. You have to just be okay with being weird. And you just do that one weird brush stroke that makes no sense, and then you come back to it and you're like, oh wow, that actually looked good. It just brings in this random energy. So trees really teach you how to do that. When you study trees, if you have a hard time with natural patterns, study trees and you'll see what I mean. And I'm just showing a little more of that. And then right under these two layers, you can, let me see if I can sneak in some of that color there. Right under these two layers, between each layer, you can add some of that snow, some of that kind of, it's not really fog. And then of course you can add the snow. One thing you do add when you have a fireplace like that, I mean a campfire, is a little halo of shadow right at the top of the canvas. And I'm probably going to put it on multiply. A great little trick is multiply, and that's just building this little cozy corner in the illustration where we don't have to worry too much about what's happening on the outer corners. We don't really care. Okay, so this wonderful little way of closing off the canvas, it does this. I mean, you don't have to have it if you feel like it's too dark. Maybe I'll do something in the middle, but it really makes it so that the fire stands out. I recommend putting in something else, another story element. I think your sword is too small. Sorry. Sorry to say that. Size doesn't matter too much. And so I'm just going to enlarge the sword. She said after saying size doesn't matter. And I'm doing that because it's going to give us a secondary object that's larger that we can reflect some light on and also cool down. So just like a swordish sword. And I'm just photo manipulating really. And keeping it in your style. That's why I'm photo manipulating. That's why I photo manipulate so much, because I need to keep things in you guys' style. I don't want to change things too much. So I'm not sure why this sword doesn't have a hilt, or I mean, doesn't have a scabbard or anything, but let's just assume he found it there, and so the sword is poked right into the snow. And it's this extra new object now. Look at that. We can enjoy it. So we're going to give it some of the same treatment we gave all the other objects in the scene. Not sure what the heck I'm doing with that lasso. Okay, which is cooling. We're going to cool it, and we're going to darken it. So we're going to cool it gently. Sorry about my brush, it's in the way. And then we're going to darken. And then wherever the sword faces, we're going to illuminate. Give us a nice little sheen on that sword. Don't want to steal away from the focal point too much. So now he's looking at this sword. Oh dang, I have this sword. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. This is a creepy sword. It's a cursed sword. I don't know how to wield a sword. Oops. I don't know how to wield a sword, he says. And so we just have a little bit of extra story. Before, the sword was kind of sticking in the snow somewhere off. And this is just a quick idea for an extra subject to add. That you can add in anything, but you need to add in something extra, so the illustration feels a little bit more complete. Just something extra. Oops. and maybe make the hilt a little bigger. I'm not sure. And then a quick cast shadow for that sword. So darken. Gonna select one of these values and just cast that shadow. Shadow is darkest at the foot of the object casting it, and lightest further away. Shadow is sharpest at the foot of the object casting it, and blurrier the further away. So that's just a little something else for us to look at. The hilt or whatever it is feels a little small still. So I'm just gonna elongate it. And just give it a little extra. Okay, and then you can add snow, which is a little interesting thing to add. Let me see if I still have a snow brush. Ooh. Sort of have a snow brush. All my brushes are kind of crappy. Nope, those are stars. Bear with me while I find a good snow brush. That's good enough, I guess. Okay, so I'm just adding in really badly some snow just to create a little atmosphere. Oops. And I'm going to delete away with the snow brush just so that it's not repetitive. Oops, erase, snow brush. And it just gives it this extra dimension when you delete away with the same brush. You don't feel like you used a stamp brush, which I did, but it'll look less so. And so we have this little extra bit of intrigue here. Okay, so that's all I have to say about this. I would add much more foliage. I would add some interesting mountain shapes in the background, maybe expand on the ones you already have here. I would add some more trees behind him. Maybe I can sneak those in really quickly. Just some quick trees. The reason this is, also important to know is that, well, there's that one reason. This is the reason we all hate is that AI is doing this, and we don't want it to do this. And we want to be able to do these things ourselves. And seeing all those AI drawings and all of those, playlists on YouTube just puts this little seed of anger in my heart every time I look at it. I'm like, God damn it, fuck it, God damn AI. But there's that reason why it's important to try to see how much further to push your illustration. But another reason is so that you can see that this is where you were going if you just put a little extra time studying your composition. This is where you would have ended up anyway. So my critiques are always in that style. Is that this is what you already, I was working with what you had. I try not to change too much of what you had going in, because it just shows you, wow, I did half of that. I did half of that. I can do the rest. And the steps I took, the changes I made weren't that profound, weren't that original, but you found a way to evolve your illustration through them. So you can do this as well. You can definitely do this as well. I'm just throwing in some extra tree-like silhouettes in the background. May not seem like much, but it gives this little dimension to the background. All right, so we're gonna flatten, and hopefully I did not erase away the, okay, so before after. And we don't have the rest of the illustration because we cropped. I don't know why it's not snapping. Okay, so before, you see how you don't have an illustration like the rest of it because it was just really, really tucked away. Let me do 5. Cancel. Sorry, I need to set it up so that you guys can see it better. So before, after, before, after. So there was the change that we made at the start, which was the change of just changing the temperature. And that's always an option. You don't have to transform your piece like I do. I recommend it. But you know, I think the point here that I'm making is that your illustration was a really great setting, but you weren't capitalizing on the setting, which was a fire. A fire is always a really, really wonderful subject to include in your environment. It's like instantly the painting feels finished because it's something we humans love to stare at. And so when you have that subject, you're not capitalizing on it, you're not showing the blue versus orange, you're not showing the cast shadows, you're not showing the focal point properly. You know, why did you pick a fire then if you're not going to go all the way? So you set yourself up for a really, really great focal point, which you did not capitalize on at all because you had all this white snow combating it. And so snow in and of itself is another wonderful subject to have in an environment, especially snow on trees. Oh my gosh, it's like the most beautiful thing. And then combining them, well, you have to balance a little bit. You can't have pure white snow on daytime and a glowing orange fire. The fire will be significantly dimmer. You can barely see a fire in the daytime, but you dim it to that golden hour where you have, you know, just enough blue right after sunset, wintry day, reflected light. Oh my gosh, everything's glowing. Then you can, the cast shadows, then you have a completed illustration. So that was the first change, which is changing the color of the environment and the time of day. I did show you how to keep the time of day though, if it really had to have it. And then there was enlarging the character so that the scene doesn't feel so constricted. And then bringing in some extra foliage in the background so we have more of a middle ground, foreground, background. We have like the space now. Now we're here. We're in it. We're in the scene. There's trees in the way. Trees in the way is a really, really great way to fill the scene up. It feels a little empty. You had one good tree and that's it. You want to make it feel like it's more of a full, rich forest. And you know, just all those cast shadows, which add something. Cast shadows are like jewels that you scatter across your illustration, across your canvas. Cast shadows dress up your canvas. They are sometimes the focal point. The hidden focal point is a cast shadow. Write that back. A cast shadow can be a hidden focal point. A cast shadow can be the thing that defibrillates your illustration. If you're painting something and it feels a little dull, change the lighting, sneak in a cast shadow, a nice sharp cast shadow, and down. That illustration goes through the roof because it's not just about the subject matter. It's not just about your character. It's not just about a face and a character and a character design mindset. Remember, if you started your skill, let's say you just learned your skill today, and you focused only on characters, which is most likely where we all are, right? We all drew characters first. We are going to be more inclined to make character-centric illustrations, even when we mean to make something that's more balanced with an environment. We're always going to, for some mental reason or other, stray away from the rules of an environment and the physics of the environment. So forgetting that fire needs blue, fire needs night, any glowing colors need night scenes, or just darker, anything darker, doesn't even have to be night. Those are not character related choices. You didn't think about that as when you were designing characters. You thought about clothing, you thought about expression, you thought about color choice, you thought about anatomy, you thought about portraits, but none of those include any of the environment rules. Even cast shadows are hard to come by when drawing characters. So how are you going to learn all this without studying environments? And some of these artists here today and the ones watching on YouTube eventually want to add backgrounds and eventually want to add environments to their illustrations. How are they going to do that? You're not going to come by those rules of physics just drawing characters. So do some sketches, guys, of trees, of textures, of environment textures. In my apprenticeship, at least once a year, they have an environment study because they need to have experience with those textures and the scale of a tree, the size of a tree against a hill, the hill against the mountain against the sky and the sunlight or the moonlight or whatever it is against the mountain as a cast shadow. And understand this ecosystem of fundamentals that's happening in an illustration. So this may have been a small change today. I may have been making very small changes and a generally small little scene, but it all comes from studying mountains and scenes and environments and forests from my time doing environments. So I really recommend you guys sneak those into your curriculum somewhere. Do a quick little tree study today, quick little environment study. I really recommend it. Thank you guys for watching today. Before, after, before, after. A lot on environments, a lot on color temperature, and very little on character. And you can see how much the character has now benefited from not being the center focus. So it benefits benefits the character you're drawing to not focus on them so much and focus on everything else. I will see you guys on my next critique hour on Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern time. If you guys want to submit your work, how do you get your work on my screen? You just go to istebrak.com and click on the subreddit icon right here, or my Discord community. My Discord community has a general critique text channel, and my subreddit has, it's the subreddit. It's the mecca of our community. This is where you can submit your work, and this is where I grabbed today's piece. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.